Hi, you guys. Welcome back to Meaningful Motivations with Tracy Erickson. And of course, if you are new to this channel, welcome. My name is Tracy Erickson, and in today's video, I have a little statement that I found in my notes from heaven that I really want to share with you guys, because I let this statement sit with me for a little while so that I could understand it on a deeper level. And I just want to share what I've learned with you guys. So stay tuned. For any of you who are new here or who just haven't seen any of my previous videos about these notes from heaven, I will fill you in on how I got these notes. My grandma passed away at the end of 2019, and ever since then, my grandpa has been receiving channeled letters from my grandma in heaven. He gets these letters from his guitar teacher, who also happens to be an astrologer and a medium since he was 4 years old. After my grandpa received his first letter, he realized that these letters were seriously coming from my grandma, based on the things that she had said in those letters that really only my grandma would have said to him. And so Grandpa continued to receive letters every once in a while from this astrologer and medium friend of his. And they have kind of evolved into what they are today, which are actual deep and very wise and profound spiritual truths. You see, over time, Grandpa and I realized through the letters that Grandma's soul was evolving while she was in heaven. Or at least she was starting to let us in on some heavenly little secrets as we evolved through reading her letters. As I was going through these notes that I take, because my grandpa calls me from time to time to read these letters to me, because I'm someone in the family who really resonates with this type of thing. And as I'm sure many of you can understand, not everybody really believes in the unbelievable like I do. So this is kind of a special little thing that I share with my grandpa, is just in the sharing of these letters. So whenever I get a call from Grandpa with some new letters from Grandma, I always take out my notebook and pen and I scribble down whatever notes that stand out to me from those letters. And so today's video, I want to focus on a single statement that I found in my notes that I took from a letter that was dated August 3rd, 2022. As I was going through my notes, I stopped on this statement. The challenge is to see how beautiful life is. So when I read that, I sat with it for a moment and I thought, if life is beautiful, then why does it have to be a challenge to see it that way? So I sat with this, and I kind of came to some little conclusions with my own reasoning. You know, another thing I noticed in the more recent letters from my grandma is that she's starting to talk more and more about other civilizations. And when I say other civilizations, I don't mean civilizations here on Earth. My grandma has been speaking of other civilizations throughout the universe. And so I was kind of connecting that thought with this thought that the challenge for us humans is to see the beauty in life, or to see that life is beautiful. And that's when I realized, well, the reason it's a challenge for us humans specifically, maybe not for every civilization, but for us, it's a challenge because of the dimension that we exist in. So in this physical dimension, in this 3D world, this earth that we live in, there's this thing called duality. So because we are here in the physical world, we are humans, but there's also another side of us. We are also a soul who is having a human experience right now. That's why my grandma's consciousness is able to still communicate with us humans through a medium, because even though her physical body has died in this dimension, her actual consciousness, which exists in other dimensions at the same time, can now live on without this physical body. I hope that makes sense. So really, it's based on this challenge, or this duality is based on the dimension that we exist in. It's based on this lower vibrational energy that we are currently residing in, right? So the reason it's a challenge to see life as beautiful is because we have duality. And so duality is what makes us also be able to understand and see the beauty of life. Without trials and tribulations, how would you know that you have grown past them? How would you know that you were successful? Without failure, is there really success? At least in this dimension? That's the question that I was thinking about. So it was revealed to me through my own mind anyway, that the reason it's a challenge is simply because of that duality and that sense of the two sides of the same coin. So you wouldn't really understand hot unless you also understand cold. You wouldn't understand light unless you also know that there's darkness. And so I just started thinking more and more on that topic. And that's when I realized that the reason it's a challenge is because we are here. Like I said, in this dimension, we live in this physical body, which gives us a lower self. Even though we are a higher being, we are currently residing in a lower being of this physical reality, right? So the challenge is to actually gain control over your lower self. The more you can gain control over your lower self, then the more you can see the beauty and the higher self. So the more I thought of it, the more I realized it's all about being a human, but reaching for what is unseen, right? Or at least trying to draw that unseen part of yourself down into this dimension. Honestly, when I think of myself in my 20s, for instance, now that it's been another 20 years, I realize how much I've grown and how much I've been able to kind of weave my higher self in with my lower self. And I've actually realized how much I am able to see the beauty in life now, whereas I was so engrossed in what was wrong with life before. And so that made me start thinking as well how I did that. And the how was through creating conscious communication with my higher self. And I really did that through a daily meditation practice over the course of many, many years. So with this profound wisdom, like on the tip of my tongue, and I couldn't quite speak it, I couldn't quite figure it out. So as I was sitting with the statement that the challenge is to see how beautiful life is, that's when I decided to turn to the words of my favorite teacher, Jesus the Christ. And so I went and grabbed my Bible to try to do some bibliomancy. And so I held my Bible, focusing on the challenge of seeing how beautiful life is. And that's when I saw the Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ in my mind's eye, which is this book. So I realized right away the Bible wasn't the book for me right now for the bibliomancy. So I went to my cabinet, put the Bible back, and got this one out. And of course, did the same. I held it, closed my eyes, focusing on what was heavy on my mind. And of course, I opened a random page. Now, the page that I opened at the time, I did write it down, was page 120. And I read kind of like towards the end of that page. And it was insightful. So I thought I'd share it with you guys in regards to what we're discussing today. So the part that I opened to when I was thinking about this was basically Jesus was teaching his 12 apostles when suddenly a crazed, obsessed man walked in. And Jesus could tell that he had unclean spirits within his being, right? And so Jesus used the omnific word of God to release those unclean spirits. So now I'm going to read what I read. And then the unclean spirits threw the man upon the floor, and with a fiendish cry they went away. And Jesus lifted up the man and said to him, "If you will keep your mind full occupied with the good, evil spirits cannot find a place to stay. They only come to empty heads and hearts. Go on your way and sin no more." Have you ever heard that saying that idle hands are the devil's playground? It kind of reminded me of that. But then I started thinking even more after reading that, like, what are unclean spirits, or the obsessed, possessed man who Jesus had to help with his omnific word? And I realized that the unclean spirits are actual symbolic of thoughts that are uncontrolled thoughts. And when thoughts are uncontrolled, they can then become like a product of the lower self and the lower vibrational energies and thought forms. And so if you have an uncontrolled mind, it's easy to get lost in those lower vibrations: fear, shame, guilt, envy, anger, whatever. But it's when you actually focus your attention upward, focus your attention onto the higher states of consciousness, that is when you can see the beauty in life. So the challenge is to escape that lower self, is to escape that uncontrolled mind that we all have at times, right? But the challenge is to let that go so you can open a channel to the higher vibrations like courage, neutrality, reasoning, love, joy, and bliss. And that's when you can see the beauty in life. Another thing is that when we have challenges in our life in general, it is very difficult to see what good comes of it while we're living in it, and while it's in our present moment, the challenge or the obstacle. But usually, as many of us have had experience throughout our life, you'll realize that once you get past that challenge or obstacle, once you make it over the hump, it's easier to look back on the situation and see how you grew from it. It's easier to see that without that tough situation, you wouldn't be the person you are today, right? Diamonds are created under immense pressure. I know we've all heard that before. So you can't find the beauty, the sparkling beauty of your soul without sometimes first going through those tough, challenging moments that we humans go through. But the challenge here, or the key, is to find the beauty in life. So the way to find that beauty is to find the lesson in those challenges and obstacles that you face. My grandpa's heartbreak is a good example of this, because in some of the letters, my grandma even addressed how heartbroken that my grandpa was that she left him, right? But my grandma, in her letters from heaven, has pointed out to my grandpa that he wouldn't be the person he is even today without losing her first. So he wouldn't have learned to play the guitar. He wouldn't have learned to tap into his songwriting potential that was lying dormant within him. He wouldn't have tapped into that creative potential that existed in him already, that he just wasn't able to find, because at the time, while Grandma was here at the end, he was so engrossed and focused on taking care of her. So in her letters, she even reminded him to see the beauty in life, even through the challenge of losing his best friend and lover. So the key to success for getting over the challenge of seeing life as beautiful is to actually see life as beautiful, to take control of the uncontrolled thoughts and to focus them where you want to focus them. Because you can either be overcome by grief and sadness, or you can see what your life has turned into now, right? At least in my grandpa's example. So he could have taken the lower path and he could have spent the rest of his days here alone and grieving and sad. Or, he could do what he did and take the higher road and, tap into new ways of being for himself and try to see life in new, beautiful ways, just different than what they were before. We all go through challenges. We all go through obstacles, and we can all get stuck in the lower vibrations of life. But it's up to us to take control in those moments and to direct our attention back up into the higher vibration consciousness. So it's up to us to stay tuned into the good vibrations. And that way we can see life is beautiful. Well, that about wraps it up for this video. So if you like this video, be sure to click that like button and share this video with all your friends out there. And of course, if you're a viewer but not yet a subscriber, I would just love for you to click subscribe down below. And once you have subscribed, you can turn on the notifications bell if you would like to be notified each and every time I upload a new video. Thank you guys so much for watching and spending your time with me. I love you. And I'll see you next time. Bye.